It's the return of Tournament in a Teabreak. I'm Ros Satar, and I'm actually joined in a very, very breezy O2 corridor by
George Bellshaw from metro.co.uk.
And we've been here at the O2 for the pre-tournament press conferences for the ATP World Tour Finals. New sponsor. What do we think?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's been a lot of focus on Rafa and whether he's going to be okay. I wouldn't say he sounded particularly convincing on his answer. He was saying, there's no decision to make, I am going to play, but if something happens in the next 2 days, I'm not going to play.
I know, I mean, I don't know about you, but I always find that I have to go back through his answers to sort of try and interpret the right thing. So yeah, initially it sounded fairly bullish. I wouldn't be here if I wasn't going to play. And then almost straight afterwards, there was the, I'll take it day by day. I mean, I don't know. And I think he's what do you think is the harder group of the two?
I think that's a really tough question. I mean, I actually think they're probably about as evenly split as they possibly could be. I mean, I think Zverev and Cilic look quite strong on Federer's side. I think Sok is probably the weakest player here. Even though he had a good week in Paris, I wasn't that impressed by the level of opposition he necessarily beat to win that title. I think he'll struggle to win a match here. I don't think that's too harsh to say. Whereas I think Nadal's group's all quite level, and the problem for Nadal is maybe Dimitrov less so, but the other two are real grinders and they'll really work him down. And if Goffin talked about getting him to run side to side, I think that'll be a real tactic of him. That's a tough first match to test that knee.
That's interesting, because certainly when I was writing our tournament page, I thought, actually, Nadal's got the better of the group. I mean, he's got great records against all of them, whereas Federer has been sort of tested by the players in his group. But it was interesting to hear both Thiem and Goffin sort of say, but to play him not on clay is actually an advantage for us here. Is like, I think the gauntlet's been thrown. I can't see him not coming out of the round robins. I certainly don't see him adding this to his list of missing titles, though.
No, the only way I see him not going through is if he pulls out.
Right.
I see him coming through that group, whether the first... I'd expect him to win the group if he's fully fit and firing. That's the kind of big question. I think Federer's point on Nadal was really interesting as well. He was saying if it was a normal Masters tournament, he'd expect Rafa not to play, because there's more kind of you play every day and it work through, whereas here you've got that day break and it's not really until the semi-finals and then the final that you've got that kind of back-to-back match play. So that's an interesting feature that Federer kind of picked out on why Rafa might be really keen to play this one. But I think you're right. I can't see anyone other than Federer winning this, to be perfectly honest.
No, and do you feel that devalues it a little in some way? Because some would argue that this is probably the weakest field that the finals have had in quite some time. Others, of course, would argue that it's about time we get to see the young guns play.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously weaker without people like Djokovic and Murray as well, and Stan. Those guys would definitely be here. There's no question about it. Even barely playing half the year, they pretty much qualified, I think, aside from Andy. And Novak might have just dropped off as well, but
Novak dropped off, but Stan was still in the list.
Stan was in the list, so and that's Novak not playing for 6 months, Andy not playing for 6 months. So it's obviously a lot weaker without those guys, and I think Raonic, particularly last year, was kind of head and shoulders above the rest as 3 by the end. He was playing some really, really kind of high-level tennis. So yeah, obviously it's a little bit weaker, but this is a stronger kind of top 10, 15 as I can really remember, certainly in my lifetime. I think there's a real kind of strength in depth to the top 15 at the minute. But having said that, Federer just looks head and shoulders above the rest. Only Djokovic has ever really looked like troubling him on this sort of surface, as shown by his winning streak here. Would Roger have beaten Djokovic if he's fit in this condition? We don't know. It's all kind of up in the air and we can never quite say, but it's hard to see anyone stopping him at the moment.
One thing that I thought was interesting coming from Roger was, it's the first time I think I've actually heard him really admit that age has caught up with him and that he really has to be... Normally he's been quite sort of, age is just a number and I'll play when I feel like it. This is the first time I've actually heard him sort of say, I can't play 25 tournaments. Well, I mean, I can, but I'm not going to get very far. I mean, I wasn't as surprised to hear Rafa say, obviously I'm not going to practice as much as I did when I was 21 years old, but he's always been a bit like that. That he's had injuries with his wrist, with his knees, and has had to really sort of admit that he's had to take care of it. But it's the first time I've actually seen Roger sort of say, if I want to carry on playing like this, I'm not going to come out every week. I don't know whether that was. I actually found that quite refreshing from him. In fact, I actually found this press conference probably the most candid and helpful he's ever been. Normally he can be a little bit guarded, a little bit barbed, and I actually thought he was actually in pretty good form this time round.
Yeah, and his comments on freshness were quite interesting as well.
Yeah.
That's always a question for this tournament. You look at people like Team who just look dead the last few weeks.
He looked dead when he was sat on the stage, to be honest.
And you're kind of thinking, all right, are you going to be fit enough? But, Federer was kind of like, oh yes, this is probably as fit as I've ever been at this stage. But equally, you always find a way through this tournament because it's one last push. You dig deep to kind of find that last bits of effort. So he was kind of saying, yes, I'm as fit as ever, but equally, it doesn't matter on this occasion. Whether he's just being a bit guarded on that, I'm not sure, but it was quite interesting comments from a player's perspective of that kind of adrenaline needed just to get you over the hump and then on the beach.
The other thing that interested me today was, again, I would expect from Rafa and from Roger to say, we don't want change, we're happy with the things the way they are. I was actually genuinely surprised with the younger players saying, you know what, we like the tradition, stop messing with it. The shot clock seems to be the one thing that people seem to feel is a good addition, but there doesn't seem to be much love for the 4 sets and all the other light innovations.
Yeah, I think the shot clock and it's in the Hawkeye calling seemed the 2 most popular, I would have said, from what people said. Which, to be fair, are probably the most 2 popular with myself, I would say. I think they.
I'm not going to disagree either. I think that those 2 make sense because of the mess that you have between slams and tournaments.
Yeah.
I mean, is it really that hard to just decide on 20 or 25 seconds and stick to it?
Yeah, and to actually time it rather than have umpires just picking a random juice to call someone at a big point in the match. It's just stupid. That needs to be regulated. I haven't watched as much as that as I would have liked to. I watched the very start of the week and got a general flavour, but I've missed a lot of the kind of midweek stuff to really kind of see how good it was. But I hope to watch a bit of it back this weekend. But yeah, those are the 2 rules I would say were the best. I don't like people moving around during points. I don't see that ever taking off. The let chords is a no for me. The 4 game sets is a definite no. I mean, it's one break and the set's done in a second. It's too quick. And when you're playing 5 of them, what's the difference between 3 sets of 6?
Yeah.
It's like the same length.
Yeah.
It doesn't make the match quicker. Like if it was 4 game sets, then that could be a quicker, faster, like 2020 cricket thing. But doing 4 games is the same essentially as
wasn't there one match that actually finished maybe 1 minute longer than some 5-setter that they played in Wimbledon or something? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. And again, Federer made a really good point that at least over the course of a 6-game set, you can try a few things. If you've got a decent lead, you can maybe be a bit more adventurous with what you're doing. If you've had a poor start, you've got some time to play yourself into the set again and at least make a sporting fist of it.
Yeah, and I actually hadn't really thought of that angle that Federer brought up. He was almost implying that tennis would get very boring because you just stick to what you know every point. You'd never kind of mix it up at all. You'd end up with a group of John Isners just piling down big serves, keeping it all very kind of short. Nothing against Isner, he's good in his own way, but it's good to have variety and people kind of trying new things, etc., etc. I think it seemed like Federer was almost arguing I wouldn't be the player I was today if I was playing under those conditions.
Yeah, absolutely.
An interesting kind of spin on it.
And for a long time he was very much a player that, if I do not remember some barbed little comments, I think when Andy beat him in the Masters over 3 and he goes, yeah, sure, you can beat me over 3 playing the way that you do. This was when Andy was his defensive best or worst or whichever way you want to look at it, but it was very much a point of, sure, you can beat me over 3 sets if you play like that, but you'll never beat me over 5. And fair enough, Murray's had to change his game to be able to win those 5-set matches when it counts. That's the key to a slam. But I don't know, is this going to be the chance when the younger players that everybody thinks is the future of the ATP are really going to make their mark? At this tournament. Yeah, forget about next year. At this tournament. I mean, we're talking really.
It's Zverev, really.
Yeah, we're talking Zverev and Team, but Team looked to me like he was spent.
I think I would like to see Team play a more reduced schedule next year. I don't think I'm alone in thinking that. I mean, he says he feels a lot better this time than last year, but his performances in the last couple of weeks, I mean, admittedly, I don't watch every minute of Dominic Thiem's matches, but the bits I have caught, the results I've seen, aren't that impressive.
No, pretty much
otherwise.
Yeah, pretty much since the end of the clay court season, I wouldn't even say he's been consistent. You know, he's done okay, and I think the strength of his performance at the beginning of the year has been what's carried him through. I mean, as he said, last year he came in as the last man in.
I was going to pick up on that precisely. You know, last year it was good for him to be there. This year you look at that field and you think, right, going forward, who's capable of kind of sitting themselves in that top 4 spot long term? Team probably is. I think he'll do very well on the clay court season throughout time, and that will kind of keep his ranking around the top 5 when these kind of big guys eventually drop off and die. You know, metaphorically.
Shall we say retire? Because I think it's a little fatalistic.
I mean, die in the sport, shall we say?
Okay.
But yeah, I think he needs to kind of establish himself at this one, show he's strong. He needs to win at least 1 or 2. I think he'll struggle to go through actually, but it'd be good for him to win one. Zverev should come through that group maybe. I think Cilic is the other real rival. I think Federer will win that group, not comfortably, but Zverev's very adept on all surfaces. He always impresses me that I'm still not quite sure to this day what his best surface is. Like, I think he can win. Like, when I was watching him younger, I kind of thought Wimbledon might be his first slam to win. Yeah. Then he did really well in the clay Masters, done well on hard courts. 5-set tennis is obviously his biggest problem in general, but in 3-set tennis, I don't really see that many players keeping up with him consistently throughout the year. So this is a big one for him, and you can hear him talking. I asked him myself about whether next year he sees himself as kind of staying in that top 5 when Murray and Djokovic come back, or whether he kind of has bigger sights of winning number 1. He's just like, don't care about the rankings at all. I just want to win every single match I play. And that's him.
Perfect, and that's
exactly
the perfect attitude to have, I think. It impressed me when he won Rome, because he was like kind of, I wanted to do, when I was a kid I thought I'd be like top 10 when I was 20, and now 21, and it's taken a big while. So he's impressed me. But when he fails spectacularly well. Yeah, when he has a bad day, his bad day seems smasher. When he has his bad days are like spectacular.
And and I mentioned Cilic there as well in that group. Like, he's someone who's done notoriously pretty badly at this event, but having said that, he's only played Burdick, who's not one of Murray, Wawrinka or Djokovic, I think. So he's got a couple of matches now that he will play and have a chance to go through realistically, rather than facing 2 incredibly difficult opponents that are going to be tough. So the pressure's on him as well as one of the experienced players, a Grand Slam winner. Don't see them both upsetting Roger, but that's the battle I see.
For the second place.
And then you've got to see it out with each other.
So let's have a look at our little thing. So I think we're all in agreement that Federer will go through, and it's going to be between Zverev and Cilic for the second spot.
So in my predictions, I've lumped for Federer and Zverev on one.
Okay.
Nadal, and I think I went for Dimitrov on the other. He looks a little fresher than the other 2. That's all that's based on. I wouldn't be surprised to see any of those go through. If Nadal's fit, he should win that group. Grigor looks in better shape in the last couple of weeks, I think.
I mean, Team looked tired to me, and Goffin's got Davis Cup. So no matter how he sort of tried to brush it off, I think that's going to be, especially after that recent defeat to GB, I think that's going to be foremost in his mind. Okay. Let's analyse as we go through the week, and then on Sunday we'll see just how far off we were.
When Federer and Nadal lose their first 2 matches and pull out, then we'll have a reassessment.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. You've been listening to Tournament and Teabreak with George Bellshaw and Ros Satar. Stay tuned for us all the way through the week. Thank you for listening.